aim to always have a great mind that talks about ideas, that uplifts people. There's beautiful power in words. So always remember that. And every interaction that we have with another human being is an interaction that will impact us. Maybe not big for us, but it could be big for the other person. Hello and welcome to another episode of Adulting with Joyce Pring. Hi! Okay, so meron tayong mga bagong viewers, audience, and listeners here on the podcast that are in a different demographic. We noticed it first on TikTok, and then now it's on YouTube and also on Spotify. So I would like to formally welcome you, our Gen Z and Gen Alpha viewers. Maraming salamat for joining us on this adulting journey. And because dumadami na kayo dito, it used to be that it was millennials that would listen to my podcast a lot, obviously, because I'm a millennial. I'm Ate Joyce. I am 32 years old. I am a wife. I've been married now for almost 6 years in October. I'm a mom, so I have a 4-year-old, Eliam, who is our intern. Hi, Eliam. And our 2-year-old, Aggie, who is my daughter. And I've been doing this podcast for the past 7 years. And when I started this, I was just 25. I was in the thick of adulting, and I couldn't find a podcast that catered to the things that I was going through as a young adult in the context of the Philippine culture. So now that you're here, I'm guessing you're probably in your early 20s or even in your late teens, and you're listening to this podcast, you're watching my clips on TikTok, and you're paying attention to the show because you are going into the thick of adulthood. And I welcome you. It all goes downhill from here. Just kidding. It doesn't. I'm just kidding. I'm sure it does feel that way sometimes, but I'm here to tell you that there is hope, that there is beauty in getting old, in growing up, and having more responsibilities, in going through more challenges, because now you're getting, into the real world, and you're probably getting out of school and things like that. So I wanted to create a series for you guys called Adulting 101. And these are going to be life skills that I hope will help you through your young adulthood. I'm currently 32. I've been working in media and communications for the past 13 years. And I feel like there's something here that needs to be said about our capabilities to interact with one another. So I want to talk about relationships. I want to talk about finances. I want to talk about career. I want to talk about, obviously, faith, diba? So whatever it is that you feel like is a skill that you want to learn that you cannot actually learn from school, or you're too jahe to ask from your friends or your parents, please do let me know in the comment section below what are the topics that you want me to do. But this is Adulting 101. Let's get right into it. But before we get into that, if you're watching on Spotify, go ahead and follow the show and drop a rating. If you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, like this video, and don't forget to tap the notification bell so you never miss an episode. And if you're on Facebook, make sure to follow my page, Joyce Pring, for updates and extra content. All right, let's get into it. So our topic for today is how to start a conversation without it being awkward. Now, if you've seen one of my episodes here on the podcast, or several of my episodes here on the podcast, I constantly talk about how the power of your conversation skills will open up doors for you or close doors for you. Meaning, it's so important that you're able to communicate well. I'm not saying na kailangan magaling ka mag-English or sobrang eloquent mo, or alam mo yun, you don't have to be extremely good at it, but you have to be able to communicate your thoughts well. Whether that's in written form, especially in communication, in speaking form, and just in interacting with people. And I think the basic foundation of that, of being a good communicator, is knowing how to start conversations, how to keep it going, and even how to end them in a not awkward way. So, producer Kiara have put together here a few of the tips that we had in mind for you, and I will tell you some practical applications on how to go about it. The first tip that we have is start with a simple hi or hello. I know it sounds basic, but unless you open yourself up to having a conversation, it will never happen. So what does this look like? Sometimes you don't want to talk to somebody because takot ka na baka maging awkward, or takot ka na maging pangat yung conversation, or takot ka na i-judge ka nila, or meron silang prejudice towards you. And, granted, all of those things could happen. But there's also that chance where it could go into a really wonderful, enjoyable conversation. You could make a new friend, 'di ba? So that's really the first step in being a good communicator. You have to know that it takes a bit of opening up and letting people into your world to help you become a better conversationalist. So something as simple as, "Hi, I'm Joyce. Actually, I'm new in this neighborhood. I just moved here from Metro Manila. What's your name?" Something like that. And then we'll go on with the rest of the conversation. But that has to happen. Or if somebody approaches you, you have to seem like you're open to it. Of course, you have to be open to it. But if you don't really feel that way, you have to at least seem like you're open to having a conversation. I recently saw a clip from, what was it? Diary of a CEO, where he had an expert on the show that talked about, I think, human connection or something like that. And one of the things that the expert was talking about was the most liked people, the most likable people, and the most liked people are the people who liked others the most. Okay, that sounds so confusing. Pero ang sinasabi niya is, yung most popular kids daw in school ay yung mga kids na would give opportunities for the other kids to make them like them. So halimbawa, you pay attention to the other people, you open yourself up, you compliment them, and you really find opportunities to like the other person that you're having a conversation with. So that could look like, you compliment their outfit, you compliment their presentation, you compliment their hair, whatever it is. To be likable, you have to like other people also. So that's the first step. It's opening yourself up. It's trying to like other people, opening yourself up for a genuine connection with another human being. Number 2, if you've already said hi, you've opened yourself up already, make sure that you remember their name. So if, for example, you met a new friend, that friend's name is Joyla, and then in the middle of the conversation, you completely forget their name, and you say, "By the way, I'm really enjoying this conversation, and I'm so sorry. I just have a bad memory. What's your name again?" That's it. That's it. Instead of pretending like you know their name throughout the conversation and not being able to address them with their first name, just be honest about it. Sometimes you'll even fumble the name, right? You can go, "Oh, hi, nice to meet you, Julia." Sorry, nakakatawa kasi si Joyla talaga totoong tinatawag siyang Julia ni Wancho. Mind you, 3 years na siyang nagtatrabaho kasama namin. Pero niloloko lang siya. You get what I'm saying? Like, it's funny, but I'm sure if they're gracious enough, they'll correct you and say, "No, actually, it's Joyla," but that's totally fine. Like, I'm the same. Like, people call me Joy Spring all the time before when I was starting on my career, and I wasn't offended. I was like, that's, you can't blame people. It kind of sounds like Joy Spring, but just be honest about it. Try to remember the first name of the person that you're talking to and having a conversation with, because I guarantee you, mas magko-connect kayo if you remember their names. Number 3, look for shared interests. Oh my goodness, I love this. I love looking for shared interests. So I keep asking questions that would, maybe show a certain level of shared interest that we have. Whether it's, "Oh, I have kids. I have a 3-year-old and a 2-year-old. Oh, I go to church in CCF. Oh, I'm a Manilena through and through, but I moved here in the South a few years ago and I was pregnant with my kid. Oh, did you see the newest Mission Impossible movie? I am obsessed with the Mission Impossible." So whatever it may be, make sure that you look for shared interest. And when you find it, this is the secret to a very good conversation. Look at how many ears you have. 2, right? How many mouths do you have? Only 1. So the ratio of your conversation has to be that way. You have to listen more than you talk. Why? Because it gives the other person space to express themselves. And if it's a good conversation that's flowing naturally and well, then 9 times out of 10, bibigyan ka rin niya ng chance to tell your story and to talk and to openly discuss. But the thing that makes people likable, in my experience of, dealing with all sorts of people my entire life, is that they're able to listen more than they yap. Kasi how many times have you been in a conversation where hindi ka makapagsalita kasi sobrang dire-diretso lang yung isang tao. Tapos parang at the end of it, you just feel resentful towards the person because they never gave you the chance to talk about what interests you, what you're passionate about, what your story is, right? So it's like a dance that you have to do. Of course, you still have to talk. Of course, you still want to express yourself. But you also have to focus on paying attention to the other person that's sharing their story and really genuinely being curious about what they have to say. One of the things that I've always lived by in terms of conversations and connecting with people is this. Assume that every single person that you meet will always have something to teach you. I'm not saying that those lessons that you will learn from them will always be valuable, but to just be in a disposition of this person has something to teach me. Maybe that lesson that they're going to teach you is, okay, this is, the current political climate, or this is what's currently happening on the other side of the world, or I traveled to Brazil and I lived there for 3 months and this is how I lived. It could be as wonderful and interesting as that, or it could be, ganito pala yung hindi magandang conversation. Ganito pala yung parang nakaka-drain na energy ng tao. So, whether it's a positive lesson or a negative lesson, there's something that you can take from that to apply in your own life to better yourself so that you can go into the next relationship, next conversation, next interaction, having more skills on what it looks like to be a good conversationalist and a good communicator. Next, ask open-ended questions. This is a rule that is applied to toddlers and also to adults. Don't ask questions that can be answered by yes or no. Did you like the dinner? Yeah. Okay. And then where does the conversation go from there? I'm not saying don't ask those questions, hard stop. What I'm trying to say is if you are being intentional about being a good conversationalist or connecting well with other people, you have to think of asking interesting questions like, what did you think about the dinner that we just had? Diba? So that's a more open-ended question. It's the same question basically as asking, did you like the dinner? But what did you think about this dinner? Or, by the way, I was reading this particular thing on my Facebook feed the other day about what's happening in the States, and it was really so interesting. Did you know? Blah, 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 blah. What do you think about that? So asking open-ended questions it's just so interesting. Like, I remember when I was doing my final thesis defense and there was this incredibly intelligent professor that was right in front of me. And I was just so interested in his life kasi he seemed so intelligent. He spoke, his memory was amazing. He spoke so well. He had all these certificates on his wall. So I just asked him like, sir, by the way, what was your master's and what was your PhD on? And then he told me about having 2 master's degrees and then having, a PhD, and then how he used to live a life that was just in service in an NGO, and then now he's in the academe. And it's just so interesting because I learned so much from this person. And that was all because I asked an open-ended question and I kept asking open-ended questions. And the beautiful thing about that is most of the time, people who are, I guess, mature and are also craving for that good connection with another human being, they'll end up asking you questions too. Like, what is your interest? Why did you end up pursuing your degree? So ask open-ended questions. Think about interesting questions that you can ask the other person. And it could be something as simple as you observe the environment. Like, for me, not naman weather, but like, what's the weather today? Pero, for example, like, you're in a concert and then you just met this new friend. And instead of going like, anong favorite song mo ng Beanie? Okay, that's a good enough question. You can go like, paano mo na-discover yung Beanie? What a great open-ended question, diba? Because we all have a story of how we found out about the favorite musical artist that we have now. And it could be, yung tita ko kasi sobrang fan siya ng Beanie. Tas lagi siya nagpo-post sa Facebook. Pero, hindi ko pinapansin kasi hipster ako eh. Gusto ko yung mga John Mayer, ganyan. Or sila Lord. Pero, clinic ko, tapos nung pinanood ko, sobrang galing pala nila. So, yun, pinakinggan ko na lahat ng mga songs. Like, wow, how fun, right? Like, talaga? Ilang taon na ba yung tita mo? I mean, it's such a funny conversation, but you know what I'm saying? Not every conversation that you have with other people has to be profound. It just has to have genuine human connection. That's it. That's what makes a good conversationalist, that you are opening yourself up for a genuine human connection, that you are curious about the other person's interests and you're looking for the shared interests that you have, that you keep asking open-ended questions so that you can keep this genuine human connection going throughout your conversation. Next, ask for help or advice. My husband does this to me all the time. Kapag wala ako sa mood magsalita, which I know you might think is never the case, but anybody who is close to me knows that I am not a yapper in real life. I love talking when I'm teaching something like this. But in general, I'm a very quiet person. I'm not the type to talk about chismes. But if you ask me about something that I'm super interested in, I will keep going. So my husband, God bless that amazing guy. He started listening to like my favorite podcasts. He started listening to audiobooks. He started listening to all these sorts of things, right? And one day, I just asked him, like, ba't ka nakikinig niyan? Hindi mo naman gusto yan. And then sabi niya sa akin, para meron akong maitanong sa'yo at may mapagkwentuhan tayo pag nasa car rides. I know, cry right? Ang ganda ko talaga. I'm sure. But the thing is, that makes him an incredibly amazing human being, and that's something that we can all steal. We immediately become enamored by people who think of us as somebody important enough to ask expertise about. Do you get what I'm saying? So, if you want to connect with somebody, figure out what they're really interested in or what they're an expert on and ask them questions about that. So my husband, he loves asking me like, "Oh, nakita mo yung nangyayari sa political climate sa states ngayon?" It's so funny. Like, I'm sure he's not interested. I mean, I'm sure he's a little bit interested, but I'm sure he asks that question because he knows that I love watching news about what's going on in the world. Or, nabasa mo na ba tong parang verse na to na blah 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 na sinend ko sa'yo? It's like, I love this guy because he knows that these are the things that I am an expert on. Meaning, it's something that I constantly consume and I'm interested in, and he asks me about it. So do that. If you are talking to somebody who is, for example, an expert in the field, ask them a specific question that you know they'll be interested to answer. And I don't know what to tell you, right? Like that is such a great thing that my husband does that's what makes him a great communicator. He's also the funniest person that I know, but he's so smart in that way where he will learn about the things that interest me, that I am an expert on in terms of like how much I consume that kind of content. And then he will ask me about it, and then he will banter with me and maybe disagree and maybe agree and maybe offer a different perspective. And that is just such a respectable and beautiful way of communicating to somebody. Next, don't force a joke or don't try hard to seem witty. I know that especially now in the social media scape, parang may extra brownie points ka palagi kapag you're sarcastic or you can, throw in a crude joke here and there. But it's 2025, you guys. I mean, I feel like we're much better than that, right? Sarcasm is not something that we should be proud of. Sarcasm makes the other person feel like crap. And throwing out crude jokes or jokes that don't really fit the conversation or jokes that will deprecate the other person or that will hurt another person to make you look funny is just not good. So try to keep the conversation light. Try to keep it positive as much as it is in your power. And another rule that I live by is to never talk ill about another person if that person is not in the room to defend themselves. And that's such a good reminder for us. Now, yes, if you want to be a constructive critic of somebody, sure, by all means, diba? You have a friend that's being problematic, sure, but make sure they're right there to defend themselves or to give their side of the story. Because what you say about other people says more about you than it does about that person that you're talking about. So if all you have to say about a person is to degrade them, to make fun of them, to, bring the chismis about them, that says more about you and your character and your capability to converse with another person than it does about them. So this is a great quote from Eleanor Roosevelt that I feel like will tie what I'm trying to say in a more eloquent way. She said, "Great minds discuss ideas, average minds discuss events, and small minds discuss people." I appreciate that. It gives you a very simple but profound pattern to think about when you start to converse with another person. So if you're talking about other people, then maybe we're being small-minded, diba? If we start talking about yun yung pinakamababa like to just talk about other people, how horrible they are. So how could it be? Instead of talking about other people, talk about ideas. Talk about what's currently going on in the world. Talk about the books that you've read. Talk about the podcasts that you listen to. Talk about this interesting thing that you got from a friend. This interesting lesson that you've learned recently because you started training for a marathon or something, right? Anything that would help you learn together, help you thrive together in the conversation that you're having. That's what's worth talking about. So keep that in mind. Crude jokes, sarcasm, those are things that may seem like it's charming, but in the grand scheme of things, it's really not. So aim to always have a great mind that talks about ideas, that uplifts people, that talks about your own journey and your own learnings. And I think that will really make you an interesting conversationalist. And finally, some tips on how to exit a conversation. So, nag-uusap na kayo, tapos andun ka na sa moment, and we all know this moment, right? Like you're having a great conversation, you feel like you're connecting, and then all of a sudden you kind of feel like, okay, I know, this is about to go awkward. This is about to go uninteresting. And that always happens. Most of the time that happens because we are human beings and it's just one of those things that happen when you are going through a conversation. Especially kung nasa party kayo, diba, you're going through the motions, you're meeting new people, etc., etc. Or hindi naman talaga ready mag-converse. I hate this, but it does happen often where people don't know how to converse. So it's one way, like you keep asking open-ended questions and they seem so disinterested in continuing the conversation that even if it's an open-ended question, they just keep giving you yes or no answers, right? They're also not asking you any questions. So what do you do when that happens? You just go, "It was great meeting you. I don't want to hold you for the rest of the party. I'll see you again later, okay?" That's it. Or you can say, "This was nice having a conversation with you, but I just saw a friend of mine and I just want to catch him. So great seeing you, great meeting you. Hope to catch you again later." Something like that. Or if it's a great conversation, you can go, "I absolutely loved meeting you. I learned so much from this conversation. Would it be okay if I get your number or if I get your social so that we can connect again next time?" So practice those ways. Like if it's negative, you don't feel like it's a good energy that you exchange, you just go, "Thank you so much. It was nice meeting you. I'm going to go ahead and say hi to some of my other friends. Enjoy the party." So always leave it in a charitable way, always leave it in a gracious way, but don't be afraid to end conversations in that way. So with all of those tips in mind, I wanted to share with you one final thing, and this is a verse from the Bible that says, "Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruit." From Proverbs chapter 18, verse 21. And I wanted to leave you that verse because I feel like right now, we are so lax about our words. We are so lax about our conversations. We think that our words don't matter. Whatever we post online, it doesn't matter. The conversations that we have, it doesn't matter. If I'm boring, it doesn't matter. If I'm sarcastic, it doesn't matter. But what does the Bible tell us? The Bible tells us that there is such a power in our tongue. So the conversations that we have could either give life or destruction to other people. That is the power of the tongue. And anytime you doubt the power of words, remember that God created this entire universe just through his words. What do they call Jesus? Jesus is the word. So there is power. There's beautiful power in words. So always remember that. And every interaction that we have with another human being is an interaction that will impact us. Maybe not big, or maybe not big for us, but it could be big for the other person. So always remember to be mindful and intentional about the conversations that you have. And I hope that this helps you. If it does and you get to apply it, please do let me know here in our Adulting 101 series. Hopefully you send me some of the other topics that you want me to talk about, and I'll see you again on the next episode. Bye-bye!